Welcome to the Dichotomy dynamic. In this series, I take a look at the relationship and conflicts of characters through a variety of media. For the first episode, we'll look at two iconic characters through manga and anime history, Guts, the Black Swordsman, and Griffith, the White Falcon, from Kentaro Miura's Berserk. Berserk is undoubtedly an influential series that has sparked multiple inspirations throughout video game and anime as a whole, such as the Dark Souls series, Black Clover, and much more. After the unfortunate passing of Miura, Berserk seemingly surged in popularity, not to say it wasn't before though. Berserk has left an impact on the world, and as its series has continued through Koji Mori and Miura's talented assistants, we will be waiting in anticipation to see how this epic dark fantasy concludes. To understand the complex nature of each of these two characters, a summary will be needed. Now, I know Berserk is an incredibly detailed and intricate story, so I will mainly be covering the Golden Age arc only, and even then, I will only attempt to include what I feel is most absolutely necessary for the analysis. If I went and just summarized every chapter of the Golden Age, this video would be hours upon hours long, so I'll try to make it brief. Guts' story starts from his birth. Left in a pile of his hanging mother's internal organs, Guts was cursed from birth, but not in the conventional way. Shizu, the woman who found Guts, dies a few years later from the plague, quite literally right in front of him. Mind you, Guts is only a few years old now, and one of his first core memories will surely be the death of the woman who raised him. He is then taken on in a band of mercenaries by his abusive father figure Gambino, who only ever taught him how to wield a sword and fight. Guts is later sold off to be assaulted by a member of the mercenaries. This is the first time we see Guts become entrapped in a horrific scenario, yet it wouldn't be the last. After Gambino is injured in battle and loses his ability to further partake in said raids, he approaches Guts. He drunkenly states how he is a cursed child, one who should never have been born in the first place. He goes in to kill the boy, but Guts reacts. He kills his father in self-defense and runs away from a home he once knew. This is the first instance in which Guts, as just a child, contemplates whether he should let himself die or continue to fight onwards. As he's approached by a pack of wolves, Guts starts slicing through each of them, seemingly without thought. Even he questions why he doesn't just give up and die. Years later, he draws the attention of the mercenary group known as the Band of the Falcon, led by the beautiful, charismatic, and charming Griffith. Guts' initial take on Griffith is cold and demeaning. Guts is someone who has never done well socially. Being raised in such a cruel environment, it's led him to becoming very distant from others, and an uncomfortability with being touched. After he's beaten a duel with Griffith, however, Guts does join the band. He forms bonds through friends such as Judo, Gaston, and Rickard, finds a best friend in Griffith, and a wishy-washy love interest in the only female soldier, Casca, at least early on. Through Guts' venture during his time in the Band of the Falcon, not only is he reckless in battle, but he's also commended for it. All except Casca, but more on that later. During a raid, the Band of the Falcon is informed that a soldier, only known as Nosferatu Zod, has been slaying their men in an attempt to conquer a stronghold. After dozens of men are killed, Guts goes to investigate, even after pleas from his comrades to halt. It's revealed to Guts and the readers that Zod is not merely a human. Even someone like Guts shakes in fear at the sight of this monstrous warrior who stands before him. Guts does his best to defend and attack the beast, only to land a single critical blow. Zod is shown to us transforming from a hulking beast to a ginormous minotaur-like demon. Guts is nearly killed, only for Griffith to distract the demon. Guts and Griffith decide to tag team Zod, finding that their best solution to win. While they do considerable damage to Zod, it is not even close enough to killing him. While the rest of the Band of the Falcon do their best to distract the beast, it is seemingly over for their leader. Until Zod notices something around Griffith's neck, an object, which he refers to as the Egg of the King. He warns Guts of Griffith's true intentions and flies away without killing either man. This is the first instance in which Griffith's motives are questioned not only by Guts, but by us readers as well. One night, after being sent on an assassination mission by Griffith himself, Guts returns to find his best friend speaking to the Princess of Midland. Griffith explains to the princess how a man should strive for a dream, and how it is the most important thing. He mentions how any man without a dream, and one who would serve under another, is no friend of his. A friend must be equal to him. The realization hits Guts. He is not Griffith's friend. Later on, after suffering injuries from killing 100 men all on his lonesome, Guts sits atop a hill, looking down at the multiple raging campfires his teammates have set up. He's greeted by Casca, and Guts elaborates how everyone seems to have a dream that they strive for, something that gives them purpose, but his fire is nowhere to be seen. He explains to her that the only thing he's had with him, through thick and thin, is his sword. Guts fights because it's the only thing he knows how to do, stating that he only does it because it's in his nature. Guts decides it is best to leave the band and find his own journey. As much as Casca pleads for Guts to stay, he just can't find the will. Griffith's words have burned into him. As Guts leaves the morning of his departure, he is stopped by his close friends, alongside Casca and Griffith. Griffith claims that he owns Guts. Griffith never loses, especially something beneficial to him, like Guts. As the two men stand in the morning snow, Griffith monologues to himself that if he can't have Guts, no one will. He is willing to kill him if it means owning him. The two men draw their blades, waiting for the other's next move. Guts triumphs, however, slicing through Griffith's blade in a single swing, and leaves to find his own path, leaving a broken and defeated Griffith in the snow behind him. As time passes, Griffith seeks out Princess Charlotte and has sex with her. However, the whole time he is with Charlotte, all he can think about is Guts, much like those who read Berserk. All he can think about is how he lost him. Griffith is later captured and tortured by the King of Midland for his actions. Guts returns about a year later to find everything has gone awry. Casca is mentally and physically exhausted, and Griffith is gone. Casca confronts Guts soon after his arrival and attacks him. She is infuriated at him for what he did to Griffith, claiming that he ruined Griffith's dream and everything was fine until he left. But as Casca stabs Guts, he doesn't pull back. Instead, he grabs her sword, keeping it in place, as Casca starts to beg him to just let go. Guts explains that he had to find his own purpose. He couldn't keep living for another man's dream. He had to leave for his own good. Guts and Casca finally embrace each other, and with a single kiss, an intricate romance is born. Unfortunately, Guts' childhood trauma takes control of him, and he's left feeling even more broken. Casca holds him, allowing Guts a moment of vulnerability. Shortly after, a mysterious figure, clad in what seems like a skeletal suit of armor, comes to relay a message. That oncoming doom and despair will soon take place in a year's time. The group then goes on to rescue Griffith. After finding him in a completely crippled state, Guts and the crew are baffled, and the first thing Griffith does when seeing Guts is wrap his hand around his neck. More on this later. After battling his way through multiple soldiers, Guts once again shows his berserker style of recklessness. Back at camp, Guts tells Casca that they could have a life together, and they could protect each other. Casca states that she can't leave Griffith though, not in his state. The band's former leader has become so weak and broken, he cannot even wash or dress himself properly. Unknowing to them, Griffith hears all of this, and with all the strength he has left, he rides off in their wagon, envisioning a castle ahead of him. As Griffith aimlessly rides away, the wagon crashes, and Griffith envisions himself with Casca, seeing that maybe he could have been happy if he had just settled down with her. At this point, though, it's too late. As Griffith wakes up to find himself lying in a shallow lake, with a broken arm, he lets out a chuckle. Griffith has truly met despair, even preparing to end his own life on a jagged rock in front of him. Before we move on to the end of this summary, it's time to look at Griffith's upbringing, to fully understand why the next events take place. Not much is known about Griffith's childhood. He was a peasant boy, still full of that luscious white hair. Dreams were always a big part of Griffith's life, and no dream was bigger than climbing up to the castle that was always in sight, yet just out of reach. The most the boy could do was just gaze at the castle from afar. He acquired an item when he was young from a fortune teller as a child, and how she referred to it as being an item that would allow its user to rule over others, or the egg of the king. We know as readers that this is a Behelit, an item that grants one demonic powers in times of your greatest suffering. However, this was no ordinary Behelit. This was the Crimson Behelit, which would allow one to ascend even over demonic powers. Griffith knew, in order to have his own kingdom, especially coming from life as a commoner, he would need an army, and a strong one at that. He eventually began to raise an army of mercenaries, small at first, mind you, but one nonetheless. It's at this point in which Griffith encounters Casca. As Casca's childhood reveals, she was sold off to a nobleman, only to be used as pleasure for the man. Griffith intervenes while she is attacked. He offers her up the sword, which means to defend herself, albeit her choice. After Casca slays the man, Griffith accepts her pleas into the band, one step closer to achieving his kingdom. As more time goes on, multiple instances would test Griffith's determination to achieve his dream. One night, after a battle, as Griffith rummages through the fallen, he notices a boy. This boy was part of the Band of the Falcon. As he lay dead, Griffith finds a toy knight on the child. Griffith relays how the boy dreamed of becoming a knight, and while Griffith recognizes the tragedy of the boy's death, he laments how it was his own choice to fight. The boy was just another stepping stone for Griffith's plan. Another instance finds Griffith in need of cash for his army. Low on funds, Lord Gannon of Tudor offers a solution. He will give Griffith all he needs in building his army, in exchange for sexual pleasure from him. Griffith accepts the offer, as his determination ceases to yield. Casca finds Griffith bathing in a river shortly after. Griffith explains how he will do what is necessary to secure his goal and the goals of the Band of the Falcon. Casca realizes what Griffith gave up for Gannon. She questions why he would do this, reaffirming that they could have gained the money and resources. While it may have taken longer, it was possible. Griffith is a patient man, so it is very interesting why he chose this route. Griffith contradicts himself around this time. As he digs into his arms, he says that he doesn't want any more unnecessary deaths to fall due to his dream. He is clearly affected by the young boy who was killed, as mentioned earlier. You may find Griffith's true goal confusing here, but Griffith is much more complex than we think. While he realizes that it is always a choice of those who serve him, he feels that he isn't giving anything back to them. This part of Griffith isn't shown much, and this is one of the few scenes in which we see a truly vulnerable Griffith. Griffith wasn't born evil, and as we can see, he does have morals. He knows dozens of men are killed in each raid and battle he partakes in. While Griffith is a man who constantly is looking to soar higher, he understands the pain and guilt put onto him. It's a necessary evil for him to secure his dream. As mentioned earlier, Guts plans to leave the Band of the Hawk. Griffith, in his own way, can't allow this to happen. Unlike someone like Corcus, who believes Guts leaving is more of a sign of him being ungrateful, or Judo, who finds him to be a valuable comrade, Griffith doesn't accept his decision. He wants Guts. He needs him. It's in part due to how Griffith sees his comrades, not so much as individuals with their own dreams, but as valuable soldiers who will do as he orders them. But Guts is different. Guts has been the only one to provide a challenge against him. Guts is strong, not just on the battlefield, but in his determination. He is a highly valuable asset. Furthermore, losing to Guts is a detrimental blow to Griffith. Griffith doesn't seek out Charlotte due to his desire to please her. It's because he feels powerless. He knows Charlotte is someone who idolizes him, wants him, and he will use that to his advantage. Griffith dominates her, but only to the thought of Guts. This has questioned many on what Griffith's sexuality really is. Personally, I believe it's meant to be ambiguous. It doesn't matter what Griffith's sexuality really is. What matters is what he'll sacrifice to obtain his dreams. And speaking of sacrifice, let's cut back to where we left off. As Griffith's Behelit activates, the group is transported to a new realm. The God Hand appears, who are benevolent creatures, and offer Griffith a choice: sacrifice his comrades to achieve his dream of a kingdom and be granted raven black wings. Griffith is enticed by the God Hand, showing him how many bodies have been lost to achieve his dream. If he denies their offer, they would have died for nothing. Griffith accepts this offer, and the Band of the Falcon are mercilessly killed by the oncoming demons. Through all of it, though, Guts and Casca manage to stay alive, for different reasons, though. Guts' anger and rage push him to the edge, which allows him to slaughter many of the demons in his path. Casca, on the other hand, is captured and stripped of her armor and clothing. As Guts watches in horror, Griffith emerges as Femto, the newest God Hand member. He then begins to perform the unimaginable. As Guts is left helpless in this situation, Griffith assaults Casca, seemingly for no other reason than to cause Guts tremendous pain. Guts eventually frees himself by dismembering his left arm, held back by a demon. However, the damage has been done. As all hope is drained away in this hell, the Skull Knight appears, going in for an attack against the God Hand. He then grabs both Guts and Casca and frees them from the terror they unwillingly found themselves in. Casca's mind has regressed in a state of protection from the trauma, and Guts has lost all of his friends. He lost his lover and his best friend, all due to Griffith's betrayal. Guts awakens a few days later, recovering in a cave with the help of Rickard. The full realization hits Guts soon after of the events that occurred. He begins to run, not knowing where he's going, and finally lets everything out, screaming into the sky, reminiscing on the home he knew for years. As night comes, demons begin to appear to Guts. He finds a mark on his body. The demons swarm him, filling his head with sounds of terror, threats of violence, and curses. Until the Skull Knight shows. He offers Guts a weapon to fend off the demons for the night, and proclaims Guts is cursed. With the newfound brand on his neck, he will forever be a struggler, hunted by demonkind until the end of his days. While the Golden Age arc covers most of the relationship between Guts and Griffith, the rest of the story holds many important devices. However, I will be focusing more now on the dynamics of Guts and Griffith's relationship, and not just a summary of the manga from here on out. If you haven't read Berserk, or only seen some of the anime, I highly recommend the rest of the series. Or if you haven't read it and are just going off of what I'm saying, I do hope you're enjoying the video. Starting with one of the most obvious comparisons between Guts and Griffith is their appearance. Throughout the manga, Guts is shown as a huge hunk of a man, dressed in all black, with his ginormous slab of metal known as the Dragon Slayer, drawn across his back. He wears all black, with a cloak usually adorning him. Guts is quiet, reserved, and when he does speak, it is usually in an aggressive or violent manner towards others. Guts appears as if he is the monster to many. Missing an eye and an arm, and covered in battle scars, he's seen as truly a scary figure to come across. Examples would include Charlotte's perception of him after they save Griffith. Guts is seething, heavily breathed, and covered in blood from the dozens of men he killed without a thought to save his friend. Another is Jill, during the Lost Children arc. During his battle against the Apostle Rosine, who is shown as an elegant fairy-like creature, Guts goes full berserk, lighting himself on fire, biting through the organs of dead children, and nearly killing Jill in the process. Guts is drawn as the true monster of the fight. Jill even monologues to herself that in the blazing fire and carnage, Guts was the one who appeared as the monster. One final example is Guts' fight against Mozgus during the end of the Conviction arc. Mozgus is granted apostle-like powers, believing he was blessed by God himself. He is the only hope for the suffering people of Albion to save them, or so they believe. As the people witness Mozgus fight atop the tower, they see Guts as the cause of their demise, and a true demon attempting to bring them harm. In contrast with Guts, Griffith is clad in shining white armor. His flowing white hair is still present, his pale, beautiful skin shining along with its very presence. Back in the Golden Age arc, Judo mentions to Guts that people are naturally drawn to Griffith. Many don't know if he is a hero, a villain, or something in between. Regardless, people want to follow Griffith. Throughout the manga, after his reincarnation, Griffith is shown to have a literal aura around him, as if he's a divine saint or savior. His very being a known legend as a leader brings in multiple strong apostles to work under him, forming what is known as the New Band of the Falcon, or the Neo Band of the Falcon. Now that Griffith is back in the mortal world, his dream of attaining a kingdom is becoming more and more of a reality by each day. Not only do apostles flock to him, but humans do as well. This is in help due to the pontiff relaying that Griffith truly is humanity's savior. Most recently, Griffith finally attains his goal in the city of Falconia, a supposed safe haven from the monstrous and magical creatures that had earlier merged with the mortal realm. I believe an important comparison to bring up is Griffith's eerily similar likeness of the Antichrist in Christianity. In the Christian Bible, the Antichrist is described as the one who will fool humanity over as the ultimate savior, full of charm and charisma. Specifically, in the book of Thessalonians, he is stated with, quote, "He will oppose and will exalt himself over everything that is called God or is worshipped, so that he sets himself up in God's temple, proclaiming himself to be God." End quote. The Antichrist is also prophesied to exalt himself over anything deemed God. It is also stated that he will, quote, "set himself up in the temple of God." End quote. This is very interesting, considering Griffith restores the once destroyed city into a magical, prominent Falconia. Just as the Antichrist promised safety and worship, Griffith has done the same with his new kingdom. We can't forget the physical similarities as well. Griffith, as mentioned, is a beautiful specimen, one who can quite literally cause those around him to feel the need to worship and obey him. Just as the Antichrist is foretold to amass thousands of followers, Griffith has done the same. The seemingly too good to be true kingdom of Falconia may be a darker collective than we realize. Finally, we have the mention of the Antichrist wanting to surpass God. While it's not confirmed to be true, many fans of the series have theorized that Griffith's ultimate plan is to surpass even the God Hand, and become the true god of the world. Even Guts himself has stated that Griffith is constantly one to soar higher and higher, seemingly never content with where he's at. He must keep climbing. Directly after his reincarnation, Griffith is found speaking to Rickard at the Hill of Swords. Guts, who just at the mere sight of Griffith, loses all control and goes in for the kill, only to be stopped by Zod. Guts interrogates Griffith, feeling he has no right to be here. Griffith explains to Guts that he wanted to see him. He wanted to know if he felt anything for him. He declares he doesn't, and is truly free. With being brought back into the mortal world, Griffith may be more powerful than ever, yet he has seemingly lost his humanity. He may appear as a human, but he is no man. As we can see, Griffith is a character who is portrayed as a hero, a savior, one whom all of humanity can rely on to save them and bring peace to the world. Guts, however, usually frightens most he approaches. He is quiet, antisocial, and doesn't take kindly to those who doubt him. The tragic part of this story is how nearly all passerbys or civilians will never know of Guts' sacrifice and the trauma he has been through. Even his new comrades hardly know the story of his earlier life, and he seems to want to keep it that way. Even more tragic is how those who live in the world of Berserk usually perceive Guts as a threat, or the true villain, if you will. Griffith, however, will always be known as the one who brought humanity to a safe, protected state. His followers will forever be unaware of the atrocities he committed in his past. Speaking of which, let's dive into why the eclipse happened. It may seem unimaginable to do what Griffith did. You may be thinking that no man could be capable of betraying so many of his friends. But those men weren't Griffith's friends. They were merely pawns, stepping stones, a bridge to achieve his dream, to achieve his castle. To understand why Griffith chose to sacrifice his comrades, we must put ourselves in the mindset of Griffith. We know he is a man who sees achieving your dreams as the drive for life. He is a man who started from nothing and worked his way to forming an incredibly strong mercenary group. Once Griffith was captured, and everything was taken away from him, he was left with nothing. Not even being able to pick up a sword, he was quite literally a broken man. Although being coerced by the God Hand, Griffith's justification for sacrificing his comrades was to ensure their deaths had a purpose, to fulfill his selfish dream. Once Griffith was given a second chance as Femto, his first action was to enact his revenge upon Guts. To Griffith, Guts was the reason he was captured. He was the reason he became broken. He was the reason he forgot his dream. Violating Casca was not to satisfy Griffith physically. It was to satisfy himself knowing Guts would face the pain he felt he deserved. I think a very important thing to cover next is the relationship between Guts and Griffith, regarding dreams and purpose. We know from when Guts spoke to Casca during the Campfire of Dreams chapter, that Guts' only reason for living is because he doesn't want to die. This at least is what Guts initially fights for. He fights because he knows nothing else. He has lived by his sword, and his sword has protected him time and time again. However, after the Golden Age arc, Guts is driven to enact revenge against demonkind and apostles alike. He later would spend the next few years hunting apostles, letting his anger and hate drive him through every murder he committed. It wasn't until he realized that he had a new purpose, to protect Casca, the only path he had left. As Berserk would continue, Guts' lust for revenge upon Griffith would seemingly dwindle out, as he was more content with protecting and watching over Casca. Guts never forgot what Griffith did, and certainly hasn't forgotten about him, but he became more in control of his anger and hatred. As for Griffith, we know his dreams and aspirations. He is a man who will keep soaring higher and higher until he's reached the peak of his dream. Griffith seemingly has no end to his lust of conquer. With Falconia thriving amongst the world, we can only predict what Griffith will do next. There is one thing that Guts has that Griffith doesn't, though, and that's Casca. Well, at least he didn't for a while, but more on that in a bit. Many have wondered if Griffith has ever had feelings for Casca. We know he valued her as a soldier, and treated her with the same respect as Guts. But did he ever love her? There are a few key moments we can look to help find this answer. Right before the eclipse, Griffith imagines himself with Casca, settled down in a remote location, with a child of their own, ironically named Guts. During this dream, however, he questions if this is what he would have done long ago. To settle down with Casca and no longer strive toward his own kingdom, it may have been the best option. During the Falcon of the Millennium arc, Griffith transforms into the Moonlight Boy, a young child who would appear to Guts and his crew at different intervals in their journey. The boy was always drawn to Casca specifically, yet never spoke a word. Casca, with her mind still regressed, formed a motherly bond with the child, an innate feeling to protect him. We, the audience, are revealed the true nature of the Moonlight Boy in chapter 364, with the young child transforming back to Griffith, crying as he speaks to Guts. We are left wondering, how would Guts react? It's been so long since he last saw Griffith. We know the last time he saw him, he was filled with rage and hatred. Would it be the same? The simple answer is yes, but there's still more to it than that. Guts tries with all his might to slay Griffith at the sight. But to his surprise, Griffith is essentially ethereal. He can't land a single hit on the man, slicing just a single strand of hair. Griffith isn't here to see Guts, though. He's here for something else. Griffith pursues towards Casca, who has just passed out due to her tremendous pain and trauma of just simply seeing him. Guts goes for one more final swing at his rival, only to stop mere inches from his shoulder. Griffith is holding Casca. Griffith knows Guts will not harm her, and he uses this to his advantage. As Elfhelm Island begins to crumble under his very feet, Guts is once again in a situation he knows all too well. He is left helpless to witnessing Griffith take Casca away from him. The situation is all too familiar. At the end of chapter 370, we see Guts in a way we never really have. Completely hopeless. Even after he was assaulted as a child, and left to die, he got up and kept moving. Even after the eclipse, where he lost all those close to him and was betrayed, he used that to keep moving forward. And yes, even when he witnessed Griffith being reborn, he stopped himself in order to protect Casca. All of that, all the progress Guts has made in ensuring Casca's protection, was taken from him in a mere instant, with no preparation at all. Guts may have finally hit his breaking point. This is truly the lowest point, and one he may never really recover from. Chapter 371 delves even deeper into Guts' despair. We see inside Guts' mind, full of flashbacks to various events in his life, all in the process of protecting Casca. Guts lets out a cry of anguish, seeing himself fall into a deep pit of sorrow. He screams how everything he worked for was all for nothing, only to then collapse on the deck floor. I find this specific moment very reminiscent of Guts as a child. After Guts was assaulted by Donovan, he curled into a fetal position, grasping only his sword for comfort. However, in this instance, Guts didn't even have his sword to hold on to. He had nothing. Now the question is, why did Griffith do this? What was his reason for taking Casca? At the time of writing, we don't know. There are multiple theories out there, but nothing is conclusive. However, there are some things we do know. We know, as the Moonlight Boy, Griffith does have an innate connection to Casca. He would appear to her for protection, for love. But if it is love and longing that Griffith seeks, why does he need Casca specifically? As a leader with his own kingdom, Griffith has thousands of followers, of fans, who would do anything for him. He has clear love interests with Charlotte, and a sort of super fan with Sonia. He has an army strong enough to fend off monsters across the globe. What more could a man ask for when he has seemingly reached his peak? This is where I find the true irony and tragedy regarding Guts and Griffith. Guts is a man who, for all his life, was made to believe he doesn't belong, that he has no purpose and was never even meant to live. The only thing he had in his life was his sword. His sword was always there for him, even in his earliest trauma. His sword is his security blanket. His sword is what has allowed him to progress as a soldier. Simply put, his sword has kept him alive. Eventually, after only driving off of hatred and rage, Guts found another purpose in Casca. She was the one who truly understood him, which was something he never had. Guts didn't need to be wealthy, or to have status, or to be known across the land. All Guts needed was his sword. Now let us look at Griffith. Griffith is someone who wanted everything. Status, rank, nobility, and leadership were all key elements in attaining his true desire, a kingdom. And after sacrificing all those who helped him build his initial empire, he finally achieved it. But as the saying goes, it's quite lonely at the top. It's ironic that even after achieving his kingdom and royalty, Griffith wasn't satisfied. Whether it was his intention to take Casca just to damage Guts further, or fulfill a need for himself, is something we will find out soon enough. In the same manner, it's tragic for Guts. Guts was a man who didn't need a kingdom, who didn't need reputation to fulfill his desires. All he needed was his sword and Casca. And in the same manner that Griffith couldn't rely on his kingdom for true purpose and needs, Guts lost the only things keeping him going. He lost Casca in a matter of seconds, and even his sword couldn't save her. Griffith is a man who wanted everything, yet still wasn't satisfied, and Guts was a man who didn't need a bigger purpose, yet lost the only thing he's ever cared about, to the same man who once took everything from him before. It's this very reason why we hate Griffith so much. We ask, why couldn't Griffith have just been satisfied with his own kingdom? Why did he need to take the only thing Guts had? Why was he not content? I find it very poetic that the same thing was asked of Griffith during the eclipse. Why couldn't he have just been content with gazing at the castle from afar? Why was he not content? While Berserk primarily follows a person versus person format of conflict, it's not the only formula it has. Think of this. What is a problem or force that Guts has always struggled with, that is always lurking about, ready to present itself? It's him. More so, the Beast of Darkness. Now, the Beast of Darkness is not so much a literal physical being, but the manifestation of Guts' inner rage and hatred. I mentioned way back that Casca would refer to Guts as a mad dog in battle, that he cares not what happens to the men he fights side with. Think back next to when Guts and the band saved Griffith. Guts used his anger and ferocity as motivation to push through the top of the tower. The eclipse truly brought out all of Guts' primal rage. And what do we see happen to him during the conviction arc? The beast appears and starts to torment him. It's not simply a demon that he can just kill and remove. It's quite literally a part of him. A deep hatred looming within, enticing him to no longer hold back, to prey and unleash fury upon all. The Beast of Darkness has tempted Guts multiple times, and is only made worse when he dons the Berserker armor, a suit of armor that manifests the beasts upon the real world, and temporarily takes control. While this gives Guts a huge advantage in battle, it has also been the very reason so many are scared of him. Even his own comrades have feared him. With the most recent chapters of 365 and 366, we still see the beast lurking on the back of Guts, waiting for a moment to take control. It would seem that Guts has yet to defeat his inner rage. The beast truly is a struggle Guts may never seem to overcome. Sadly, the beast has overtaken him without warning before. During Guts and Casca's journey at the start of the Falcon of the Millennium Arc, Guts loses all control and envisions the beast devouring Casca. The beast convinces him, for just a moment, to leave behind his struggle for Casca, the restlessness she brings along, and the never-ending distress. As Guts awakens from his own possession, he finds Casca has lost any remaining trust she had left for him. Guts can do nothing but dwell on the fact that he nearly killed his own lover. Guts had finally seen just what the beast can do to him, and what the consequences can lead to. It once again is quite tragic that the rage Guts has built up all his life, through trauma and betrayal, had nearly killed the only driving force to push it back. Imagine for a moment what would have happened if Guts hadn't taken control. What if the beast was persistent and was successful in killing Casca? We know as readers that this would be the ultimate tragedy, and undoubtedly would change Guts forever. Luckily, this doesn't happen, so let's move on from that depressing thought. Towards the end of the Fantasia arc, Farnese and Shirkei traverse through Casca's mind in a dreamscape sequence, in order to allow her to recover her mind and move past her trauma. During their journey through the dark and barren wasteland that is Casca's mind, they encounter a black, three-legged rabid dog dragging along a casket. The two open it to find a tiny, doll-like creature that is represented as Casca. The dog is hesitant toward the two upon arrival, but later helps guide them through the land. We know this dog is Guts. Besides the physical similarities such as the missing eye, limb, and all-black appearance, he resembles a far greater similarity. He is still a mad dog. From all the way back during the Golden Age, when Casca would berate Guts for his recklessness in battle, and seemingly little care for others and himself, we see truly how she pictures Guts. A rabid, yet loyal dog. Struggling always to drag along her casket, Guts took her along his own journey. In the dreamscape, the dog is constantly attacked by demons, but refuses to give up on protecting the casket, even if the burden is tremendous. Guts refused to give up on Casca, knowing damn well how much he struggled every day. Casca may have lost her mind and status after the eclipse, but she wasn't oblivious to the world around her. Not completely. She knew that Guts, this man who she didn't fully recognize, who even attempted to kill her, all along wanted to protect her. She was scared, no doubt, but knew that this man, she was bound to, literally at one point, always kept her safe. Well, as safe as you can be in the world of Berserk, at least. Finally, there is one more formula Berserk displays, and that is the person versus world dynamic. As early as the Black Swordsman chapters, we can see just how terrifying the world in this story really is. Whether it's living as a villager in poverty, a young girl tormented by drunken soldiers, or a deceased child being propped up by a spear by a literal demon, it's safe to bet this world is unfair. Bad things happen to good people. Throughout much of Guts' life, we see him tormented by a variety of tragic events. Whether that be by a father figure, a physical injury, or the death of friends, the world of Berserk is extremely bleak. As mentioned earlier, Guts was cursed with an unfair life at birth. He was raised in circumstances out of his control that no child should ever have to endure. Guts' first instance of being accused by the world he resides in is being told he is a cursed child by Gambino. After this, Guts is once again hit with the cruel realization of this world when he is left to die in the middle of a valley, left to a pack of wolves. He pushes forward, however. After the events of the eclipse, Guts is informed by the Skull Knight that he truly is cursed, forced to walk the earth, preyed upon by demons of every kind, waiting to pull his soul into hell. The brand across his neck would see to it that he doesn't forget this. Even still, Guts doesn't care what fate has to offer him. Guts essentially tells fate to go screw itself, and that he decides when he lives or dies. Throughout his constant battles with apostles, many of them belittle and poke fun at Guts, remarking how he is branded and just merely a human who poses no significant threat. This is once again another instance of Guts being told who he is and what he can and cannot do. The anger and frustration builds up in Guts with every fight, and is usually the driving force behind each killing blow he performs on the apostles. I think one of the most tragic events in the world of Berserk, showing its cruelty, is at the end of the Lost Children arc. After Guts has finally defeated the apostle Rosine, Jill, a young girl from a village who had been following Guts, is left to return back to her home. However, Jill's life is a depressing one. Left in the care of her cowardly mother and abusive father, she starts to plead with Guts to take her with him. She laments how anywhere would be better than the home she has grown up in. Guts tries to reason with Jill, explaining that the place he is headed in this world is not one she wants to be around for. This doesn't stop her from nearly begging at this point, and it isn't until Guts shows her the demons and darkness that constantly lurk around him, quite literally, as they are nearly engulfed in it. After all, she was witness to the monstrosities of apostles and their powers. Finally, Guts covers Jill around his cloak and reveals that there is no paradise to escape to. There is no magical land that will protect you from the horrors of the world. The only way we can feel protected is to protect ourselves, even if it may feel impossible. This seems to fill Jill with at least some hope, and as she heads back to her village, she leaves with more courage than where she started. Guts isn't the only character to be affected by the world he lives in. Griffith endures difficulties just as well due to the world he was born into. Griffith was a commoner, as we know, with no real royal heritage to help solidify his goals of obtaining a kingdom. Griffith had to put in the work all by himself. Throughout the Golden Age, multiple royal members of the kingdom are either surprised at the mere fact of Griffith's achievements in battle as just a commoner, or disgusted by it. During the preparation for the Battle of Doldry, the King of Midland is interested in Griffith's attack plans. During this, we witness the other commanders belittle Griffith and simply doubt his intelligence and battle knowledge due to his background. This never seems to outwardly bother him, however, as Griffith is extremely calculated in his plans and confidence. It could also be due to the fact that Griffith sees himself in a much greater light than even those of royalty around him. With Griffith's narcissistic personality, it wouldn't be a surprise. Berserk is a story that is extremely important to many. The themes it presents in its story cannot be overlooked, especially considering how many there are. Berserk is a story about revenge, hunting down the ones who have done you wrong, at whatever cost it may be to your body or mind. Berserk is a story about finding a home in a world that is cruel and unjust to you. Berserk is a story about love and allowing yourself to be vulnerable. Berserk is a story about overcoming your own inner demons and hatred, not allowing it to swallow you whole. Berserk is a story about struggling. Even when the world is trying to bury you, and even fate itself is deeming you to fail, you keep struggling. You keep pushing forward. You may not have any other reason than to simply say, screw it. As we've learned from Guts' journey, sometimes that's all it takes. The dichotomy of Guts and Griffith is incredible, and while I hope to get a good majority of the comparisons and relations between the two, the only way to truly recall all of this would be to read the manga, which, once again, I highly recommend. Berserk is my favorite story of all time, and I don't mean in just manga and anime, I mean in every aspect. There is nothing out there like Berserk, at least when it comes to how incredibly well written the story, characters, and plot are. While nothing is perfect, Berserk is the closest thing I have ever seen to perfection within storytelling. Kentaro Miura may not be in this world physically, but he has achieved something only few will ever have, and that's immortality. His work will never be forgotten. There's a quote I've heard before, and it goes, "A man dies twice in his life, once when he leaves this world, and another when he is forgotten." However, Kentaro Miura will always live on. I hope throughout this video, if there's one thing you can take away from this, it's that Berserk, along with Kentaro Miura, and Guts, and even Griffith, are all elements of storytelling that will go down as a masterpiece. Thank you all for watching this video. This was really fun to make, and it did take a while because this actually is the first video I have done on this channel, and I'm still very new to editing, audio editing, video editing, everything along those lines. And if anyone is even still watching this, which would be incredible, let me know in the comments what kind of video you want next. I definitely want to do more videos about comparing the protagonists and antagonists of stories like I did with Berserk here. And it doesn't have to be just anime and manga, it can be any kind of media I'm looking to do. But thank you again once for watching. Please go in the comments and let me know what you want to see next and what characters you would like to see analyzed next. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.